You're listening to Psych with Mike. For more episodes or to connect with the show with comments, ideas, or to be a guest, go to www.psychwithmike.com. Follow the show on Twitter @PsychWithMike or like the Facebook page @PsychWithMike. Now, here's Psych with Mike. Welcome into the Psych with Mike library. This is Dr. Michael Mahana. I'm here with Mr. Brett Newcomb.
Buenos dias.
How are you?
I'm good.
Yeah. Today's episode is actually a request from my wife. So this is the first time that she's ever made a request.
Wow.
So she said, "Hey,
so how deep is this going to be?"
For me?
I don't know.
I don't know how deep it's going to be.
What is it? What are we doing?
So my wife, is and always has been in retail. And through the course of her career, she has worked her way up. She's been the district manager in St. Louis for Bed Bath & Beyond. She doesn't like for me to talk about her, so I won't give you the whole background. But
a surfeit of management experience at all levels.
Yes, but she manages groups now of stores rather than just individuals.
A store, right?
Yeah. And during the pandemic, and now as we are coming out of the pandemic, it has been just so hard for her to find good quality individuals who want to work and who are going to show up regularly. And she, had her ideas about it when we were all getting stimulus checks and things like that. And I had always said that I did not think that was really what was motivating this disparity between the number of jobs that were available and people who wanted to fill them. And so now that we're coming out of the pandemic, hopefully coming out of the pandemic, she said, "Hey, would you guys talk about that?" And I said, "Well, you should come on the show and talk about it." And she didn't want to do that. But I said, "Yeah, we'll talk about it." So that's what we're going to talk about today is what is driving what people are now coming to call the Great Resignation.
Okay.
So do you have any initial thoughts about that?
I think that the pandemic has, in many respects, pushed a pause and reset button for people who are busy living their lives. And if we talk about different age brackets, where are you in your life? Are you 18 to 25? Are you 25 to 35, 35 to 45, and so on? Mm-hmm. You come to the conversation from a different perspective. Mm-hmm. What are your financial obligations? What are your debts? What are your emotional commitments? Do you have children? What's your risk tolerance? And conversations I've had with an awful lot of younger adults, 17 to 30. What do you want to do? Mm-hmm. What do you want to do in life? Mm-hmm. What do you want to do with your life? And those are really difficult conversations to have because they don't have answers. They don't know. So many of them say, "I don't like what I'm doing. I'm frustrated where I am, but I don't know what I want." Mm-hmm. And then others are trapped. Mm-hmm. Historically, people are trapped by their economic circumstances. I have to pay rent. I have a mortgage. If I quit my job, my boss is a jerk and they're giving me too much to do and they won't let me off to go to the Kentucky Derby, which I really love and want to enjoy, and but they won't let me have it. And so, what can I do? I'm trapped. Mm-hmm. Well, this pandemic and a lot of the restrictions that occurred in the marketplace in terms of people going to jobs that they had has caused a pause and reset button to be pushed for so many of them. So now they're saying, well, I don't have to do this. Mm-hmm. I can choose not to. And so labor is having a different conversation with management than it has ever had.
Yeah.
And people are saying, I don't think I want you to talk to me that way. I don't think that the benefits that I'm getting in terms of sick leave or parent leave or education leave are worth the crap I have to take to do this job. And you don't pay me that much money anyway, especially for lower income level jobs. Why do I want to stand next to 4 people within 3 feet with a sharp knife in my hand in a cold refrigerator system carving up chickens for $8 an hour and take a lot of crap from you about when I come to work and how I have to be and what I have to do, and I say it's cold in here and my hands, I've got arthritis, and you don't care. So
I think, and so then you can let me know if you agree with this or not. I actually think that this phenomenon is systemic, and actually the seeds of this had been planted for decades prior to the pandemic. I think the pandemic brought it to a head.
Well, I agree.
But I think that, over the course of the last 30 years, we've just really invested a lot of effort into telling people that they matter, participation trophies, and this idea that every single individual matters and should be able to have their needs individually met. We've seen home ownership decline and more people renting. And I think that the seeds of this have been planted for decades prior to this, and then the pandemic brought that all to a head. But I think that we're now seeing people really looking at themselves and genuinely asking themselves, is this the life that I want to live? And if it isn't, what is the life that I want to live?
Oh,
and
absolutely.
how could
Absolutely. Social messaging around how to get to the good life has been so filtered by the entrenched powers. And for the last 30 years, the message has been, you must, if you want to have a good life, if you want to have economic security and a good life, you must have a college degree. And so then people would borrow money, would subjugate themselves to a lot of debt for the opportunity to get a college degree. And so you pay $70,000, $80,000, $100,000 or more to get a degree in teaching. And then you figure in Missouri, the average teacher salary is $38,000 a year. How long is it going to take you to pay $700,000 back?
Then you have the system was
pay
designed.
That back and buy a house.
Yeah.
So they're saying, wait a minute, why am I teaching school? Why did I go to college to get this degree? So then you look and say, well, plumbers make this, and truck drivers make that, and electricians make this, and they didn't go to college for 4 years. They didn't spend $300,000 getting a higher level education. Are they smarter? Did they make a better decision? And then you say, well, what do plumbers do all day? Do you want to do that? Do you want to crawl around under a house? Do you want to mess with a clogged toilet? Do you want to put these things in mechanically? Because you can make really good money if you want to be a carpenter. So what do you want? Well, I don't know what I want. I want to be vice president. I talked to so many 20, 21, 22-year-old kids who want to come out of college and make $500,000 a year and be vice president of a company. I'm like, what do you have to offer the marketplace? Well, what do you mean? They don't know. And so being valued is one of the things that management has to find a way to ensure. How do you show your employees that you value them? What does that mean? How does it work?
But I also think that this systemic change that I am looking at has been playing out. So we've had this investment in everybody's individual self-esteem. You're fine, you're great, you can do whatever you want to do, and the world should give you what you need. Yeah. And then we've also seen the rise of social media where people can be, quote, influencers. So you can get paid to be on social media and open boxes, and people will watch that stuff. And so then the social media platform can sell advertisement to that, and you can make money by having that be your life. And I think that people look at that kind of stuff and they say, that's what I want to do. I want to do those kinds of things. Or they say, hey, you know what? I could convert a van into a mobile home, and I could drive around the country and take pictures, and people will follow me, and people do. And those things are options now for people that didn't exist before. And as people now are finding those options, they're leaving the traditional workplace. And the traditional workplace now has to reevaluate, what is it that we're going to offer people that's going to be higher value than these other things, these other options that people could choose. And I think that we've created this reality over the course of the last 20 years, and now it's come to a head, and everybody's, having apoplexy. Oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Because now we can't find workers. Well, this has been going on for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's just now reached a head. But as a business, how do you compete with the lure of somebody wanting to go out and be a social influencer?
Well, most of us who might think we want to do something don't necessarily do anything about it, or have the ability to do anything about it. I remember when I was teaching high school years ago, I had a student whose goal in life was to be a rock star. I'm going to be famous. I'm going to be like the Beatles. I'm going to be a mega millionaire, and I'm going to be famous. And I said, Ken, do you play a musical instrument?
Do you want to give his last name?
No.
Okay.
I said, do you play a musical instrument? No. But I play air guitar.
Yeah.
He would play air guitar to music that he would play. And he would just...
I rock on Guitar Hero.
The kids would hang around him and get him to do it. And it all became a thing. And I said, do you sing? No. Do you know anything about bands? Do you know anything about roadies? Do you know anything about the music industry? No. Well, how are you going to be a rock star? Well, I am. And that was as far as he ever took it. I am. So we fantasize. I want to be on the first rocket ship to Mars. What do I need to do to get there? What are the steps that would get me an opportunity to be on a rocket ship to Mars?
Right.
Do I need to become a pilot? Do I need to become an engineer? Do I need to become a scientist? Do I need to go to work for NASA? Or do I need to go to work for Tesla? What do I need to do? There are not standard answers for that anymore. It used to be, well, go to college, get a degree. So what do I get a degree in?
Right.
English, art appreciation, music appreciation, anthropology. How many jobs are there for anthropologists that are worth spending $500,000 to get qualified?
Yeah.
When you and I taught at the university for people that wanted to be therapists with a master's degree. You get a master's degree in counseling, and then you go through the hoops to get a state license that permits you to be a counselor. How much money are you going to make? Well, I don't know. Well, why don't you know? What does the field pay? Well, it depends. What does it depend on? It depends on if you work for an insurance company, if you work for a hospital, if you work for a psychiatrist in their office. They pay different things. Here's the range. Or if you're self-employed, here's a potential range. But figure it out. Do the numbers. I mean, if you're self-employed, how many clients can you see a week? Assuming they would come. How many? It maxes out. The only thing you have to sell is your time. So how much money will you make? Then you have office expenses. We used to write it on the board, draw it all up. And so someone would say, I get a master's degree and I get out of here and I'm going to get a job that pays me $28,000 a year. I'm already making that. I said, okay. So then your quality of life comes into it. Would you rather be doing this than what you're doing? I don't know. By the time I get there, I work as a service director for an automobile company. I make $100,000 a year already. So I'm going to go down to a $38,000, but I have a house, and who's going to pay my rent? So you get caught up in all that stuff, and corporations have to find answers for attracting capable, quality personnel to their corporation for employees. So you have to have good communication. You have to have a good work environment. You have to have respect. They have to be valued. They have to be encouraged.
My question, though, is do corporations currently understand.
No, I don't think so.
And I don't think they do either.
Yeah.
And I think that that's where the disconnect is now, is that corporations have absolutely no clue how to be able to provide for potential employees what they need to feel valued. And we've talked about, Google and how great a work environment that is, but now we hear really horrible things about working at Google. So,
but life changes and circumstances change. I have a son who's a nurse, emergency room nurse. I remember when he was in training, he called me 2:00 in the morning one night, so excited. He said, "Dad, I've had the most incredible day." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "I held an alive, functioning brain in my bare hands." We opened this guy's head, and I had to hold his head while they did something on it. And within this work shift. And then right after that, I held a live, beating heart. He was so excited about what he was learning and what he was doing, and that those two individuals lived, and he had a role in their survival. Now, when he talks about nursing, he's like, there are too many rules. There's too many regulations. There's too much paperwork. Management is crap, and people are horrible, and the patients are horrible, and I risk dying every time I go to work because of COVID. And the idiots that won't get a vaccine. So the job quality for him experientially has changed dramatically. And he's gone through cycles where he says, I don't want to be a nurse. I'm going to be a ditch digger. I'm going to build fences. I'm going to drive a truck. And then he'll go back to nursing because he wants to be a nurse. You got to respect that level of frustration that's endemic to the occupation.
Right. Sure. But what I wonder, and well, hang on. Let's take our break, and then we'll pick this up on the other side. Hey, Brett, if you were going to tell somebody to check out something on the internet to help them with their mental health, what would you tell them?
I'd tell them to listen to Psych with Mike.
Why would you tell them that?
Because it's probably one of the most easily listenable experiences you can have that will give you information that's useful for a whole spectrum of concerns that people have.
I agree, and I have actually been told that by at least a dozen people, several of whom were not married to me, and some of them didn't even know me.
That's amazing.
That is amazing. When we get that kind of feedback from people, it is so incredibly humbling and overwhelming for me.
It is for both of us.
Yeah. So we really appreciate it. And as always, if it's Friday, it's Psych with Mike. Okay, we're back. And, what I was saying before the break is, what I wonder, though, is, first off, what are people looking for? Because I don't think that that's been well defined.
Yeah.
How are corporations going to provide that in a meaningful way? And then tertiarily, how long is it going to take them to change the dynamic? I'm afraid we may see an even greater mass exodus from corporate workforce because the corporations are going to take 10 years to figure out how to provide what it is that these individuals are looking for. And by that time, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to leave.
Well, I don't know that there's a good definition of what are people looking for.
Exactly.
I mean, you read a lot of things, and they say, well, work-life balance. I don't want to work 16-hour days. I don't want to have to drive 2 hours to work and 2 hours from work on top of a 16-hour days. I won't get to see my children. I won't get to go fishing. I won't get to go hunting. I won't get to watch TV. As a culture, we have to address that. What do we value as individuals, as families? How do we spend that time, and how do we position ourselves to have that time to spend? So maybe my son works for a major corporation, and for the last 4 years that he's worked for them, they've said, okay, you get 2 or 3 weeks of vacation a year, and you can build up days that you don't use to this maximum. And then you can take that time whenever you want to take that time, as long as no one else on your team is taking that same time. This year, in December, they contacted me and said, we're going to change all the rules. So now you're going to have vacation days. Not going to be assigned, they're not going to be determined, not going to be numbered. Just whenever you need a day off, take it. Whenever you have something that's coming up, notify your boss and say, I'm getting married, I'm going to take 2 weeks off. And that'll be fine. Well, what's my limit? Well, it all depends on how the company's doing and how other people are choosing. So do I get 2 weeks of vacation? Well, there's no reason for you not to, but you got to sign up and take them.
Right.
Well, but what if I want 3 weeks? Well, that could probably be worked out.
Yeah.
So, they're trying to evolve.
Right.
But, and this is a progressive company. They're right in the forefront.
Oh, yeah.
But the absence of an answer is frustrating.
Yeah. Because what they're saying is we've got to learn how to be more flexible to meet the needs of our employees. But the problem is that then now that's amorphous. Now there's no, I don't know what the guidelines are. So maybe I get
a company
2 weeks paid off. But what if I don't take 2 weeks paid off? Well, now it's not getting carried over. There's no maximum within which
One of the things that when he went to work for this company, one of the things that they said to him is, okay, we know when you're signed into work, whether you're at the office or at home. We know when you sign out. After you leave work after an 8-hour day, do not sign back in. We don't want you checking your emails. When you go home and be with your family. Go home and take boxing lessons. Go do something that you want to do. Because we don't want you doing what many of our managers do, which is work all day and then go home and work all night.
Right.
Instant available communications means I might miss something. I just got an email. I better check it out. I better respond. I better send this memo. I better write this paragraph right now. And my kids are crying, Daddy, can you help me with my algebra?
Right. But that's another one of the things that has been building over the last several decades is, now I'm holding up my phone. Now we all have, computers in the palms of our hands that allow us to be connected. When you and I remember having a pager working at the hospital. And I remember when I went into practice with you guys at West County, you guys came to me and said, I don't know if you remember this, but there was actually a meeting where you guys came to me and said, hey, we want you to get a cell phone. And I said, I don't need a cell phone. I got a pager. And you guys said, we need to be able to get a hold of you. And, if there's a client or whatever, we need to be able to talk to you and we want you to get a cell phone. And I resisted that. Nowadays, we have these computers that we're carrying around that allow us to be connected 24/7. And the allure of that is very seductive.
Well, and the commitment to the job. I mean, that's one of the things that you commit to when you take on a client who's in a crisis is I'll be available. Although anybody that calls the doctor's office today for anything, the very first thing you have to listen to is if this is a real emergency, a true emergency, go immediately to the hospital. Everybody says that as a formula because some lawyer told them you got to say that. Am I bothering you?
No.
Oh, okay. So technology changes, the social description of work changes, the educational preparation changes, and we're behind. There's a lag time. We're behind wherever reality is all the time.
But it used to be becoming a medical doctor was seen as the ticket. Like you became a medical doctor and you were good. And my daughter, who is graduating from medical school in May, has spent the last 2 years, I'm not even joking, like just fraught with anxiety over choosing her discipline because of exactly this question. What's the work-life balance? She looks at, these medical communities now, because that's what they are. Practice, they're communities, they're group practices. And you've got to see a certain number of patients every day and produce a certain amount of outcome.
Average of 7 minutes per patient.
And she didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
She wants to be able to sit down with you and have a conversation and get to know you and actually be able to treat you as a human being. But that's considered a boutique medical practice nowadays.
Yeah, we know that.
And it's just like, that's not even a guarantee. You could become a medical doctor right now in the United States, and you might get a job that's paying you decently, $70, $80, $90,000 a year as a hospitalist, but the work-life balance is just ridiculous. You're going to be expected to put in 60 hours a week for that money, and you're not going to have control of your own future.
Yeah.
And so these things are changing or have changed, but I think that they've now reached the end of the pendulum swing, and now they're going to have to swing back, because I don't think people are going to say okay to that anymore.
People are going to be distraught when they discover that a lot of the existing doctors retire, and there are no new doctors. The trouble of finding a private practice to belong to as a client. You have to interview. They have to take you on. What if I'm in a category where you don't want a balance of old men who have health issues? You want these young, healthy. So I'm not eligible. So I got no doctor. So where do I get medical help?
Right.
Go to the emergency room. Well, the emergency room, you drive by, and it costs you $10,000 in copays.
Yeah.
Anyway, our systems are collapsing, partly because of this issue that your wife rages, and she does both. How does a company survive and grow, profit, and make good things using staff that's happy to be there, that sees that as a growth opportunity for them? Their lives will improve, the quality of life will improve, but that they feel like they're important to it, that they're recognized as an individual and not as a cog in the wheel. I taught high school for 20 years. I was a popular teacher. I was an identified face on the staff. I was central to the survival of the school, I thought. I quit. Went back to visit the next year. I had to check in the front door and get a pass. Somebody had to escort me to the classroom, and nobody knew my name. Yeah. But my classroom was filled with a teacher teaching the same stuff that I used to teach, who now was wonderful Ms. So-and-so, who's teaching these fun classes. And you go away and you think, what did it matter?
Right. So well, and the idea of mattering, making a mark, I think that the idea of that is now changing.
Well, but the value has to come from within. I mean, I taught because I wanted to teach, and I felt good about teaching. And even though I was an interchangeable part, and the next year somebody else was in that same room with those same textbooks and different kids, that doesn't diminish the value that I brought to the table or got from the experience with those students and their families.
Right.
So I feel good about my time as a school teacher. I've been very fortunate in having 3 different careers, and I feel good about all 3 of them. But I'm from that generation that's starting to say, well, what am I going to do now? And why am I going to do it? And how am I going to do it? And why would I do it? But when I first started at 17, working 40 hours a week at night and going to school 40 hours a week in the daytime, not really ever sleeping, so that I could climb the ladder to get to where I wanted to be. It's different now.
Yeah. So what I would say is that this is an evolving issue,
constantly.
And it's not going to be resolved. My wife, I think, would like there to be an answer. Tell me what the answer is, and then I can do something to fix it.
Your wife wants to balance the books. Bottom line is for me.
Right. Yeah. And I'm saying I don't think that's what is going on here. I think this is going to be something that's going to evolve over the next several years, if not a decade or more. And I think that the first step is that each person needs to really genuinely think for themselves, what is it that I want?
We're not taught to ask that question.
I know. We're taught that you should just get what you want and it should be something intrinsic. But I'm saying we have to start thinking about what is it.
You live in a market society where advertising markets you to say, I want this. I want a BMW. No, I want a Tesla. I want an electric car. No, I want a pickup truck. No, I want 5 pickup trucks. I want a vacation in Europe. I want a big house. I want a McMansion. So we all get messaged to want and crave things. We're not taught to go inside and say, what do you value? among all these things you could invest yourself in to acquire, which will bring you pleasure,
Right.
which will bring you ego,
Right.
which will bring you security. How do you balance between pleasure, ego, and security? And then what about family?
Right. So what I'm hoping is that, the people the mighty psychonauts that are listening to this podcast, that they will then distribute the message, and two friends will tell two friends who will tell two friends. And that
Albert Schweitzer
eventually will get this as a part of the zeitgeist of the culture, that people need to start looking internally. The only way this is going to be solved is when people can start saying, this is what we want. And that provides then the structure within which that the corporations can change, but then it's going to take a while for them to be able to catch on. So the faster that we actually start thinking in terms of what does it mean to be valued? How do I track that? How do I measure that? That's got to be the first thing that happens.
it's so complex, Michael. As you're talking, I'm thinking about, what if I say, in order to be valued, I want to be transgendered? Because I feel the need to live a life that presents me as a different gender. And I feel like that's the right thing for me. Does society allow that? Does it embrace it? Do my workmates accept it? Does my company accept it? Politically, do the conservative politicians in the state of Missouri allow it, support it? So how does that play out when I'm looking for a job? Do I want to go to work for General Motors? Do I want to go to work at a grocery store? Because I want to make a living.
But what I'm saying, though, is, so let's say that that's true, that that's what you want, is that you want to live your life as transgendered. Once you identify that, then no, the conservative Republicans in the state of Missouri are not going to accept that. But then you can find the environments where there is permission for you to do that. But you have to know that that's what you want first.
But that means if I want that, I have to leave where I have lived and go to an alien environment and live among strangers until I make friends.
But I think that my hope is that is what this revolution is all about.
Let's look at the
is that we're not talking about what will society let me do. It's I identify what I want, and then I create that environment within my circle. I think that's what we may be looking at, and that's
so. How
different.
do we teach people to do that?
They go to therapy. See what I did there?
Yeah, I did.
But,
I see that.
I mean, and it's clearly not that simple, but I think that we promote this message and people have to say, oh, that resonates with me, that makes sense. And then other people have to start also then saying that, and then it becomes a movement, and then people say, okay, yes, that's what we're going to encourage people to do, is to look internally and to start to be very self-aware, and then to choose environments. It's like when we talk about in developmental psychology, right? We talk about the genophile versus the phenophile, right? So, or the what is your genetics, and then what is the expression of that. So, if I want to live in a world that's transgendered, I have to find the environments, I have to niche pick the environments where that is going to be accepted, and then go and live in those environments and choose to do that. And when people start to do that, then society will start adapting to what those individual choices are. I think that's really hopefully what we're looking at. And I think if we actually start to do that, we could have a better society.
I just think it's really, really complex. You have to deal with social justice.
Yeah.
You have to deal with economic justice. You have to deal with political justice. You have to deal with racism. And so, to come back to Kim and her question, what does a company do and what do employees do? Your answer seems to be, check your whole card. Ask yourself, what do I value in life and how do I pursue it? What am I willing to pay to get it?
Right.
And take your journey.
And then ask your company, will you give this to me?
Okay. All right.
And then the company can say yes or no.
Yeah.
All right, so if you want to get a hold of us, you can reach us at psychwithmike.com, send us a message. If you want to get us through the social media, at psychwithmike on Facebook and Twitter. And please, please, please go to YouTube. If you've never done it, just do it, even if you don't want to access the show that way, and subscribe to the show and hit the bell notification icon so that you get notified when we drop a new episode, because that is really beneficial for us. The music that appears in Psych with Mike is written and performed by Mr. Benjamin DeClue. And as always, if it's Friday, it's Psych with Mike.